All aboard for what might be the biggest Sunrail story in years. Expansion rumors are chugging along, and Florida commuters are eager to know, is this the real deal or just another whistle in the wind? Imagine skipping traffic and gliding downtown by train. Sounds dreamy, right? But dreams need dollars, and tracks need planning. So who's behind the push, and what's the timeline? In today's great Trainspeed, we're laying it all out about the hype, the hurdles, and the hope for a bigger, better Sunrail. Grab your coffee and your curiosity. This ride's just getting started. When Sunrail launched service through Central Florida in 2014, it represented a long-awaited shift for a region long defined by car travel, running from DeLand in Volusia County down to Poinciana in Osceola County. The system stitched together Orlando's urban spine, but left major destinations like Orlando International Airport and International Drive just out of reach. That missing link may soon be filled. On November 10, 2025, the Orlando City Council approved a $2.62 billion capital improvements plan for fiscal years 2025 to 2030. Hidden among water, road, and park upgrades was a modest but significant placeholder. This funding, up to $100 million in local financing via loan or bond, is reserved for the Sunrail Airport expansion in fiscal years 2029 to 2030. While the number itself is small compared to the total project, estimated at more than $4 billion, it is symbolically powerful. It signals that Orlando is ready to put money on the table for one of Florida's most anticipated rail extensions, the Sunshine Corridor, a proposed east-west link that will connect Sunrail to Brightline, Orlando International Airport, MCO, the Orange County Convention Center, and ultimately Tampa. Mayor Buddy Dyer has described the airport connection as the first phase of a broader transformation. Once Sunrail reaches MCO, it will have the ridership, visibility, and operational flexibility to expand west toward the Convention Center and the tourism core around Walt Disney World. The plan would not only connect commuters and tourists alike, but also help integrate public transit into the region's growing network of intercity trains. If completed, this line could deliver a 19-minute ride from downtown Orlando to the airport, fast, frequent, and reliable, unlike the unpredictable highway commute that can stretch well past an hour during peak travel periods. But before a single track is laid, there is a crucial first step. The Florida Department of Transportation, FDOT, is conducting a $6 million Project Development and Environmental (PD&E) study, expected to conclude in May 2027, which will finalize the shared corridor's route and total construction cost. That study is the key to unlocking federal funding. Until then, the local placeholder is just that, a promise waiting for its match. Sounds promising, but where does the funding come from to make it happen? We'll break it down in the next part. If you're enjoying this, subscribe for more updates and the latest rail news. Sunrail's expansion rests on an intricate balance of federal, state, and local partnerships. Typically, projects of this scale are funded 50% by federal grants, 25% by the state, and 25% by local governments. Orlando's placeholder, the $100 million loan, would serve as a local match, allowing the city to compete for federal funding under programs like New Starts or CRISI. However, securing that money will not be easy. The next Federal Surface Transportation Reauthorization, which will define spending priorities for 2027 to 2031, has yet to be finalized. University of Florida engineering professor Jacob Yan has noted that the national debt is already high, and there are many other transportation priorities, from repairing bridges to funding bus networks, to be addressed. His prediction is cautious that federal rail funding could shrink in the next authorization cycle. That uncertainty means Orlando's local and private partners will need to fill some of the gaps. Encouragingly, Universal Orlando Resort has already offered land near the Orange County Convention Center for a future station and pledged funding through a community development district, a creative model that allows resort area businesses to share in infrastructure costs. Still, the math is daunting. The Sunshine Corridor's total cost exceeds $4 billion, and that number may climb as engineering, property acquisition, and materials costs rise. In this light, the 2025 to 2030 capital plan's placeholder is less about covering the total expense and more about showing readiness, a signal to Washington that Central Florida is serious about investing in rail. Adding to the complexity, Brightline's financial standing could play a role. In mid-2025, Fitch Ratings downgraded Brightline's $2.22 billion senior bond from BB+ to B, reflecting concerns about high leverage and project completion risks as Brightline extends toward Tampa. That downgrade does not endanger the Sunshine Corridor, but it does raise questions about how much private capital the intercity operator can contribute to shared infrastructure. Meanwhile, the technical side of the expansion continues to progress. FDOT's PD and E study will define route options, whether to follow the State Road 528 corridor, curve through International Drive, or integrate both through grade-separated segments and shared tracks. Engineers must ensure the design accommodates both Brightline's 125 miles per hour intercity operations and Sunrail's 78 miles per hour commuter trains, with signal integration, passing loops, and compatible station platforms. Mayor Dyer has also said that as the system reaches the airport, Sunrail will begin night and weekend operations, expanding beyond its current weekday commuter schedule. That shift would mark a major evolution from a 9-to-5 service into a fully regional transit network. Still, every major rail project faces its long tunnel of approvals. Environmental review, land acquisition, and interagency coordination can stretch for years. In this case, 2027 marks the end of the planning phase, but likely just the beginning of detailed engineering and funding negotiations. So after all these hurdles and funding questions, can this project still move forward? Drop 1 for yes, 0 for no. We're looking forward to hearing from you. The Sunshine Corridor is a regional connector that could reshape how Floridians and visitors move across the state. A recent survey by the Orlando Economic Partnership found that 77% of voters in Orange, Osceola, and Seminole counties said they would likely ride Sunrail if it connected the airport and theme parks. Reaching MCO by rail could eliminate thousands of daily car trips and relieve pressure on State Road 528 and Interstate 4, two of the state's most congested highways. For the convention industry, anchored by the Orange County Convention Center, it means thousands of delegates arriving car-free and directly from the airport. If completed, the Sunshine Corridor could mark a monumental leap forward in how Florida connects its people and its places. Imagine this sequence. A passenger lands at MCO, boards Sunrail to reach a downtown hotel in minutes, then transfers onto Brightline for a same-day trip to Tampa Bay. That is not just convenience. That is regional integration in action. The project also has economic ripple effects. Station area development near the convention center could spur transit-oriented housing, mixed-use commercial spaces, and new pedestrian districts, reducing reliance on cars, while supporting the hospitality workforce. Real estate analysts have already pointed to the potential for rising property values around proposed stops. Of course, none of this happens overnight. The timeline from study completion in 2027 to opening day in the early 2030s is long, and funding approvals may shift with political cycles, but the foundations are being laid. One planning document, one study milestone, one budget placeholder at a time. Reactions to Orlando's plan to set aside up to $100 million for a Sunrail airport link by 2030 split sharply. On one side, skeptics are fed up with process fatigue. They point to years of studies and an environmental review they see as excessive for existing trains on existing track, adding a familiar refrain. They'll believe it when shovels hit the ground. A few go further, calling Sunrail a failure and warning that another promise without weekend and late-night service won't change much. Supporters counter that an MCO connection could be a monumental leap forward. In their view, a direct airport link instantly boosts utility and ridership, and extending service to International Drive and the Convention Center would transform Sunrail from a niche commuter line to the backbone of Orlando's transit network. Many urge officials to prioritize this phase first, paired with nights and weekends operations to pull cars off I-4 and meaningfully cut traffic. Some even widen the lens. Run weekend trains from Jacksonville to Orlando for Jags games, and you capture regional trips that highways currently dominate. For now, the $100 million placeholder in Orlando's capital plan may seem small on paper, but in the language of infrastructure, it is a promise, a first signal that Central Florida is preparing to build not just for today's traffic, but for tomorrow's mobility. So, as the Sunshine Corridor enters its next phase, the question is not whether Orlando needs this connection, it is when it will arrive. If you have ever imagined stepping off a plane and catching a sleek Sunrail train straight into the heart of the city, stay tuned. Because this time, Florida's next big rail chapter is already boarding.